Hey, Gavin.
Hey, Louie.
Can you imagine? Look at us in the daylight. Look at this skin. Look at this radiance, the sun glowing on both of us.
Please, I have a filter on. I'm like, I do not look good until 3 p.m. and then you have a window from 3 p.m. to 3:02. That's it.
We got the early drag filter on. Yeah. Early drag race filter. But we are doing a daytime podcasting today because we have a very, very special guest today.
We do. This is so exciting, and I'm very nervous, and you can probably hear it in my voice, but we have one of the co-authors of TCM Underground, 50 must-see films from the world of classic cult and late-night cinema. Oh my god. Please welcome to the stage, Quatoyiah Murry.
Hello! Thank you guys so much for having me.
I'm like Vanna Whiting the book for our Patreon audience right now.
Vanna White as well.
Yes, and Toya is joining us from Paris, a Parisian girl. And so I'm so glad that we were able to find the time where we were both awake to do this.
Yes.
Because science and time and all that.
Exactly.
Before we jump into the wonderful reason why we're here, we have a little bit of old business. First, in our last episode, we talked all about whodunits. Super fun, super crazy episode that we recorded. We asked you guys to go online and vote for your favorite whodunit, and the results are in. In last place was my pick, The Last of Shiloh, at 5%. If you can find it, please watch it. It's probably people just haven't seen the movie. It's really fun.
That just tells me that people haven't seen it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Exactly.
You know.
Knives Out came in third place with 8%. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, who I put that on because I was like, what should I put in that last spot? And I was like, I can't ignore. We didn't talk about it a lot because we talked about it in another episode, but obviously it's a great whodunit, and it came in a second place with 38%. And on top was Gavin's pick, Clue, at 47%. There's really just not a wrong answer. Toya, do you have a favorite whodunit?
I think I'll have to just pick like nostalgia choose for me, and it's got to be Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I mean, I also Last of Sheila is absolutely fantastic, but yeah, I can't let go of the hold of Roger Rabbit.
Yeah. I mean, it hits so hard. Like it's still so very funny. It's shocking. Gentrification.
Yeah,
it's got it all,
and so adult. Always every time I see it, I'm like, that baby's smoking a cigar. Like.
Hollywood was crazy.
The bad influences that we had growing up, you know.
I know.
So true.
One other thing that I wanted to announce, our Patreon friends participated in our Oscars game where we were guessing who would win the Oscar. And I have the results. It was back and forth as I was tallying up all the things. I was like, oh, this person missed this. But here are the results. The winner is none other than Roy Mao. So congrats, Roy.
Congrats, Roy. That's amazing.
Roy missed the two acting categories, but then hit every below line. I was like, she knew who was going to get short animated film. So congrats, Roy.
I'm the famous Oscars enemy on the pod. I didn't even watch because I know I can watch the next day on YouTube. Any of the important stuff. But seriously, congratulations to Michelle Yeoh. We did an entire Michelle Yeoh episode. Historic. I have said many times on the show, the Oscars don't matter until they do.
Until they fucking do.
Literally felt the exact same way. I was like, oh, I don't care. Because last year, my friends and I stayed up till at 4 a.m. We all decided to watch the Oscars.
Oh my God.
Paris time. So this year I was like, I'm not doing it. I don't care. And then of course the next day I'm like crying watching the highlights. I'm like, oh my God, the Oscars is so special.
Yeah. Yes. Kiki Kwan won the first award of the night. And I was already crying. Right off the bat, I was crying from his speech. It was just, amazing.
I am such a sucker that both when Michelle Yeoh and the Daniels were like, this is for the moms. I was like, this is for the moms.
So Roy, we'll message you on the Discord and we'll figure out your prize. Thank you everyone for playing. And yeah, we'll do it again some other time. But okay, enough with the old business. Toya, please tell our listeners who you have brought here for us on this very good day to talk about.
So today I brought none other than James Spader. This is actually a photo that a friend of mine, Matthew Ownby, who I used to work at TCM and we did TCM Slumber Ground. He is also one of the founding members. He got me this commissioned right before I left. It's
Amazing.
This beautiful picture of Spader. I am just absolutely obsessed with this man. It started in the pandemic, so this is a fairly like, and I've of course known of Spader my whole life. He's in and out of my life. He's one of those actors that when I've previously seen him in movies, I've always enjoyed him, but then I just kind of forget about him because he's not in a lot of movies actively. And then during the pandemic, I watched Jack's Back as like a random, like, all right, let me just throw this on. And just having, I guess, 2 Spaders for the price of one, like, did it for me. And after that, I was just like, I need to see everything I can possibly see that he's done. So I've been cranking through his entire filmography. It's definitely slowed down because, of course, I moved to Paris and the book came out and I did my master's last year. So a lot of other movies. Yeah, it's been a crazy year.
You wrote a book and did your master's? I'm literally like, I don't know. I'm going to crash on the couch and eat some chips.
I miss being able to do that. Yes.
That's amazing. I love that this is a fresh obsession for you because I similarly, like I've known of James Spader, but like to be able to dive really hard into the late 80s, early 90s, where he was in a million movies like every year. Exactly. And so we are all on the same page. Gavin, what about you? Do you have like a
I feel like James Spader has always been in the ether. Like we've like tangentially covered Spader several different times. We did an Andrew McCarthy episode. Like he was involved in, one of our Cameron Diaz movies. Like we've talked about him a lot, but I've actually been, I feel like the most connection I've ever had to Spader was his TV work because I was a huge Boston Legal fan. I watched all of Boston Legal when it was on. I remember watching the first couple seasons of The Blacklist. I kind of fell off because I was like, this is the same thing every week. But,
my mom loves the show.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's great. He's fantastic. And funny enough, but I was never like a big Spader head. The thing I always associate with James Spader is there's a line in the pilot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I put in my email when I was emailing you, where it's like Cordelia's like, she's quizzing Buffy on her coolness factor. And she just goes, James Spader. And Buffy goes, he has to call me. And it was 97. And I was like, what? But I get it now. I get it. I was like, 97 James Spader could call me.
That's peak. That's peak. Yes. That's what the Crash era of too. Like, oh dear God.
And I saw Crash as a teen, and I rewatching it, and we'll obviously talk about it later, but rewatching it, I was just like, what did I like? I loved it, and I loved it now too. But I was like, what did I think of this movie as a teen? And I just couldn't put myself in that place. So
that takes a lot of brain work to get around that one. That one is not like a passive watch. That is
exactly.
That's a lean forward watch. But I'm so excited to jump into this. So why don't we get into our rewind?
So I have the pleasure of doing the rewind this week, and boy, it's funny. I guess it's not a doozy because he's really guarded. He doesn't talk about his previous non-acting life a lot, but when he does, it's I feel like it's the same anecdotes just told in different ways. I don't know if that makes sense. But James Todd Spader was born February 7th, 1960. So he's a cool 63 years old. So he's still pretty young. And he was born in Boston and is the youngest of 3 children. His parents, Jean and Stoddard, also known as Todd, which is where his middle name comes from, Spader, were both teachers. He has 2 older sisters, Libby Spader and Annie Spader. And the way he talks about his upbringing is like very, like they weren't people of means. Like he kind of, I got the implication that he lived on the campus that his parents taught at. It was like a private school sort of. And so they like lived there. He said super liberal upbringing. Like his mother was like never dressed, he's kind of said. I know.
I've read that too. Yeah, where he's just like kind of grew up in almost a nudist type of environment.
Yeah.
Oh my god, this is telling me so much about him and his fucking weird life.
Just wait.
Well, we made believe a lot around the house, I just did that a lot. I still do that.
He said that like they would spend summers in this almost like him and his sisters like had their bedroom was like a converted chicken coop. So there was a lot of like space between the walls. And he's like, his sisters had boys over all the time and there just wasn't a lot of privacy. And he said there were men and women throughout the house a lot. And funny enough, so I found an interview. I found a Rolling Stone interview where they were like, James Spader is so bizarre. And then I found like a Playboy interview shortly thereafter where they were like, about that Rolling Stone interview. And he was like, yeah, well, like whatever. But in the Rolling Stone interview, he mentioned that when there were people around the house a lot, he was often the first to offer to play doctor with them. And his exact quote was, our household was very comfortable with sexuality. There was just a lot of girls around and guys. I played doctor with both.
Oh my god!
But the second interview I found near months later, his story changed a bit, and he's like, "Oh yeah, there were a lot of women around, and I was always the first to be like, let's play doctor if you were a woman." That sounds like an agent being like, "Don't you hint at bisexuality?"
Right? They said we cannot have bisexuals in Hollywood. We can't do it.
Early life. Really, that's kind of it. He said he was terrible at school. He attended many private schools, including the Pike School in Andover, where his mother taught art. And he eventually transferred to the Phillips Academy, where he befriended John Kennedy Jr. But because he was so bad at school, he ends up dropping out. And from there, at 17, he moves to New York. And he, basically becomes a man of odd jobs. Just a list of some of the odd jobs he took. They include bartending, teaching yoga. He drove a meat truck. He loaded railroad cars. He was a stable boy for horses in New York City. We have him.
This is all just sounding very pornographic.
Right?
It's like, name a porn job, and it's like, yeah, I'm a meat truck deliverer. I'm a stable boy.
My favorite of all of these is private detective. Yeah.
Who done it?
Exactly.
I did not know that. That's fascinating.
And yeah, it's so bonkers to be like private detective. Of course, actor. Of course, I get it, but that's
I grew up just a half hour north of Boston in a little town called North Andover. Anyway, so I moved to New York really to become a private detective. Then, a few other things happened, and I worked, ended up, doing a series of dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of, well, probably 3 to 4 dozen, odd jobs, different odd jobs, manual labor jobs, and so on. And all the time cultivating my, career in a multitude of fantasy, my career as a pirate or as a, whatever, mobster, private detective, whatever the things were.
But he said, he really wanted to do that as a career, and then he started taking some acting classes. But he said he literally only took from one teacher, not one acting class, but he studied with one person. And when that person died, that was it. That's all of his acting training.
There was a man named Blair Cutting who taught at a studio here in town called the Michael Chekhov Studio. Yeah. Beatrice Straight, the actress, had helped form this studio with this man, Blair Cutting, and I studied with him on and off, really for the fun of it more than anything else. He was great fun. He was a clown, and it was really great fun. And I studied with him off and on until he died, and then that was the end of my studying.
That explains just so much about Spader.
Yeah, because his acting style is kind of singular. He has this mode that he's on. Even when he does do because he has some character parts that he does do, but it's still in the mode of he's a very lean forward actor. He's just like very like
yes. It's a very personal, like, yeah.
He actually even has an anecdote about that from one of the earlier seasons of the Blacklist, is when they shot the pilot, and this is jumping way far ahead, but we'll come back. When they shot the pilot, he said the director had this huge argument with the producers about this one scene, and they were like, the director was like, let's do it, this scene full out. It's like him and the woman playing Elizabeth Keene, and he wanted both of them in the shot, and the producers were like, no, it should be a close-up of him. And they went back and forth, and finally James Spader was like, why don't we make it an uncomfortable close-up? Like, why don't we do it here? Like, just the face. And he won. So like, and apparently that's like the like Blacklist house style, is because James Spader is like very tight close-ups.
Pop off.
I love that he's like, let's make him uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think it's what he likes to do in his career. Like, how can I make people uncomfortable?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He does this small film called Teammates. I counted it as having seen this movie. I've never seen this movie, but somebody put all of James Spader's scenes on YouTube. Thank you, whoever did that.
A stan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I watched those 2-3 scenes that he's in, and I was just like, I've seen enough of this movie.
Exactly. That's all you need. From what I hear, that's all you need.
Yeah. And also, not only was it his first movie, it's Estelle Getty's first movie, and she's in one of those 3 scenes. So
wow.
So I was like, oh, Estelle Getty. There's Sophia.
Iconic.
But his first major role is in the film Endless Love, the Franco Zeffirelli 1981 romantic drama ? I don't know if either of you got to see this.
Yeah, I have.
Let's talk a little Endless Love, because I think he's good in it, but like,
I think he's good in it, and I think he's beautiful. I mean, that's a lot of his movies, especially those like early 80s ones where he's acting, he's doing what he just kind of needs to do, but he's just so gorgeous in that time period with the hair. The hair is just a whole nother level, and it's just so perfect for that time. And Endless Love is such a weird movie, but it's one that I kind of go back to a lot, just kind of have on in the background. I think it's just because of how it's shot and how sensual it is. It's just one of those movies that's just like, I don't know, it feels nice to just kind of wash over you, but then it's also really, really bad in a lot of ways.
Well, so the plot is literally, it's a love story between Brooke Shields, who plays his younger sister, and her boyfriend at the time, who, and forgive me, I can't think of the actor's name. I thought he was beautiful, and then found out that he basically retired from acting after that. And I was like,
Martin Hewitt.
Martin Hewitt. Yeah, I was like, he could have had a career. I mean, I don't think he's amazing in the movie, but I was just like, he's got it.
Yeah.
It also features Tom Cruise in one scene. It was Tom Cruise's first movie as well.
Wow.
Talking about burning buildings.
Him and his cut off shorts.
Yes. But it's about a doomed love affair between Brooke Shields and this man, and they're both 14, and it's like a very liberal parentage where the dad doesn't want him sleeping over. The mom's kind of living vicariously through her daughter with this man because she's not really in love with her husband. And it's shots like Franco Zeffirelli. It's shot so sensitively, like apparently by all accounts, kind of creepy. Like was literally off screen pinching Brooke Shields to make her like more orgasmic looking during the sex scenes. Yeah, not cool.
Art is not more important than people.
Exactly. And Zeffirelli did Romeo and Juliet, which is why it has this sheen to it. This 1968 version, which also 2 young actors at the time. That's in these very kind of sexual like being captured very sexually on screen. So again, just pre 2015.
Yeah.
The world was weird.
It's so funny that you bring up Romeo and Juliet, the 68 version, because I think most people know that from 8th grade English class, where the teacher wheels out a TV and is like, okay, there's going to be some nudity. Do not laugh.
But it's Shakespearean.
It's Shakespearean, exactly. I'm very lucky that I had a very hip teacher. So we had the Baz Luhrmann version in 8th grade, not the 68.
we watched clips. They were like, this isn't a traditional way of doing it.
Faithful enough.
Yeah. But not to shit on my schooling too much, but I will say, before we move off it, just because I don't want to spend too much time on it, because it's not a huge role, I will say there's definitely like shades of the future. Like my favorite scene that he has is he takes her sister's boyfriend out hunting, I believe, and he's like her boyfriend's trying to talk to James Spader, and finally James Spader is just like, just because you're fucking my sister doesn't mean you're family. And I was like...
Such a great part, yeah.
I was like, well, that's James Spader.
My grandfather built that place. And Pappy let it go. I'm going to rebuild the whole thing one of these days.
Yeah? That's a great idea. You're good at doing stuff like that. I'll help you, okay? We'll come up here on weekends. And Jade would love it. Imagine getting up in the morning with a lake right there. I mean, of course, this is a place for the whole family.
Just because you're fucking my sister doesn't make you part of the family.
Everybody talks about his big blow up with Sex, Lies, and Videotapes, but there's so many movies before that. I mean, in 86, he plays Steph in Pretty in Pink. We talked about Pretty in Pink in our Andrew McCarthy episode. I love this performance, and it's so funny because every time I see this movie, I'm like, does his character actually even need to exist?
Not at all, but I'm so glad he's there. Like that's the thing. He adds such an interesting dynamic to the overall story, and just to Molly Ringwald's character, and just to the school in general. Like, who is this old guy who still goes to this school, who's smoking cigarettes inside? Like, what is this? It's such a fascinating, weird character to have, but it works.
Well, I think in these movies like Pretty in Pink and even Mannequin, he captured the aesthetic of just like asshole bro guy of the 80s so well. Like, girl, give him a popped collar and like the hair will do the rest.
But it's so funny because those characters are so different and yet both very James Spader. Because Mannequin, he's like, the hair is slicked and it's like the thick rim glasses and he's kind of like the nerdy business guy. But there is still a Steph quality to him. There's something alluring about him that, like, even though it is this very comedic, like, well, that woman's a mannequin.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing that I always think about the most about Pretty in Pink, especially from doing an Andrew McCarthy episode, and I think this sort of defines him outside of the movie world, was that when Andrew McCarthy was on set, he was treated really... like it was like him and Molly Ringwald were friends, and then John Cryer was like excised, but because they're both like, he's nerdy, and John Cryer has said that the only person that was nice to him on the set was James Spader. And like, I think that says so much about who James Spader actually is versus the screen persona, because he was like, none of this is real. Like, you're not a nerd. And Spader has said, he doesn't like to go out. He's like a very particular person. He is self-diagnosed OCD. I don't know if he's actually ever been diagnosed. So he says he likes to, it's very helpful on an acting set for him because he likes to get things right. But like in his personal life, it's not as great. He's also a bit germophobic and he doesn't like to go out. And so while, like Andrew McCarthy and
Rob Lowe
and to a lesser extent, like Robert Downey Jr., and they're getting this reputation for the Brat Pack. The thing I think is most interesting, and you actually said it, Toya, that he looked older. And he said he has no idea why people kept casting him as a teenager because he does, like, I watched, Tough Turf, which was one of his big first leads, and he looks moderately more teenaged in that movie. But then I also watched The New Kids, and I was like, this man is 40.
He's a full-grown adult, like, abusing these children.
Yeah,
menacing
menacing future con Lori Loughlin.
I come in here and act decent, and you turn me down. Well, I don't fucking believe that.
You're crazy.
Crazy? You want crazy? Well, I'll show you crazy.
I love in Tough Turf, co-starring Kim Richards, Real Housewife.
Yes.
They're like really tough, but then they also have like a dance break.
Yeah, several.
I was like, okay, this movie is kind of iconic. It's bad, but it's very
so bad. But that's a wild one as well.
Tough Turf I liked because it had, and once again it's bad, but it has the energy of like there's like a specific moment where people were like kind of musicals but kind of not, and so it has that like Streets of Fire, Grease 2 quality, but it can never attain the level that either of those movies has. Yeah. And I was really bummed to find out that he was dubbed for the singing, because he like
that part that is one of the few movies, and I'm big on Letterboxd, so I have a bunch of random lists, and one of the lists that I have is movies that have a scene that's so cringe it like made me physically react. It's so cringe. Him at this piano with this dove is
and what makes it worse is the song is literally like 2/3 chorus. It's literally him just like, we own the night, or like just over and the camera just keeps getting closer to him, and it's like, I got it. It's like, what are we
Meanwhile,
doing?
like his girlfriend is like talking to the preppies about anal sex or something.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, it's a Tough Turf, man. You know what?
Yeah.
I recommend seeing it.
It's a good time. It's fun.
It's fun. I mean, it's, and it's this weird remake. It's trying to be this remake of Rebel Without a Cause.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know that, but when I was first watching it, I was just like, what are they? Is this Rebel Without a Cause? Is this the same story?
Did you also clock at the end? It's giving full West Side Story. She grabs the gun and is like, how many bullets are left? Enough for you, enough for me. I was like, Maria?
It's just stealing all these other parts, and then it's just, it just escalates to this weird part in the end where I'm just like, imagine being in high school and being like, a guy got shot over the weekend.
And that's what's crazy about it is like the extreme, because it does like, I don't want to say who gets shot, but like the people that get shot too. I was just like, did that just happen?
Yeah.
It's like a Dare special episode or something.
It feels like it, a very, very long Dare episode for sure. Or don't date from the wrong side of the tracks, whatever the lesson would be.
Come on! Stay. Just when I thought we were getting to be good friends, huh? Come on.
Something wrong with this guy. What's wrong with you? I suggest ice your ass right now.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why, because I danced with one of your boyfriends?
That's some funny stuff.
That's one of the few times that he's the like good guy,
right?
And I think a good dark reflection of that is Less Than Zero, which is once again a movie we've talked about before. Because literally, like half of these early 80s movies are with Andrew McCarthy, so we have talked about him before. But I do just want to bring it up briefly because I didn't rewatch it for this, but the thing is, both Spader and Robert Downey Jr., who are not really the leads, I mean they're like secondary leads, have the better part.
Definitely.
and Andrew McCarthy has this like straight man part, and Spader is a drug dealer who's essentially not blackmailing, like Robert Downey Jr. owes him money. But he's holding it over him for sexual favors.
Yeah, he's like a pimp. Yes, the pimp and then a drug dealer, and he's like, just graduated high school. Like, what is California?
It's good work if you can get it, I guess.
Right. Exactly. No, I rewatched it recently, and it's a phenomenon. It holds up because of Spader and Robert Downey Jr. Those two are absolutely incredible in it.
Yeah, when I watched it, I was like really taken by. I was like, the 80s were really hurting people. People were making art that was full of like crazy, aggressive,
definitely,
very just like weighty stuff. But yeah, this era of Spader's career is just like firing on all cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because he has said in interviews, out of everything, the movie he gets asked the most about besides Sex Lies is Wall Street. And I did not rewatch Wall Street for this because he's in 3 scenes.
No,
I didn't watch it either. Yeah,
I've seen it before. He's a lawyer. He's fine, but I'm always like, Wall Street.
Yeah, we watched that for our Michael Douglas episode, and that makes sense because Michael Douglas is in a lot of the scenes.
Yes, absolutely. But really around the time. So he's been an actor for a decade, but his big breakthrough comes in 1989's Sex, Lies, and Videotape. He plays a voyeur who kind of sweeps into the lives of this unhappily married couple. The husband is cheating on his wife with a phenomenal Laura San Giacomo, who I love and always think of as like sitcom star, even though she's so much more than that. Steven Soderbergh directed it. I think he sort of said it best by he like took a contemporary relook at it. And I think it's a great movie. I don't get me wrong, but he's like, I don't think I had a lot to say. And I think that says a lot about the 80s, about how people, because the film was so popular, that people were just wanting for anything.
Right.
That, you know, and I think that's an interesting thing, because I do think that in a contemporary sense, Sex, Lies, and Videotape doesn't really amount to much. I don't know. And I could be wrong. I mean, if either of you feel differently, feel free to.
Well, what I like about it is that, like, in the world that they're in like 89, you know, a lot of movies from that era, even the movies that Spader is in, sex is so gratuitous and kind of meaningless and forward and, like, you know, cheap. And in the movie even shows us, you know, the sister is fucking her sister's husband. Like, and it's very, like, there's a lot of graphic stuff. And then for his character, and I would say, like, it felt like the movie was trying to make a point of, like, sometimes, like, the space and the words is a lot sexier, and there's power and sex in the restraint of just, like, tell me what you like, and that is hot, you know. And so I think for me, watching it even now, it's like, you know, wow, to feel sexy, to look sexy, to feel sexy without being, like, you know, really aggressive and nasty about it. Like, there is something there. And I wonder if, like, you know, because people were drowning in tits in this era, like, you know, just drowning in it. Every movie that wanted to be edgy was like, you know, tits and ass and fucking. This movie is like, and he literally says, I'm impotent. I can't, you know, have sex. The only way is by interviewing women, and he's not fucking them. He's just watching the videotapes of them talking about what they like sexually, which I thought was really interesting.
What are the interviews about?
The interviews are about sex.
Sex? What about sex?
Everything about sex.
I agree with that, because I definitely, I also feel that, like, it's not necessarily a compelling movie. There's not much in it that's happening. There's not much to it, but just something about Soderbergh's pacing and just how the movie kind of goes along. It's a fun. It's not. I don't want to say fun. I enjoy it to watch it for that reason. But I do think that what makes it so compelling is the sexual restraint. That there's so much talk about sex without actually having sex or seeing people naked. And I just remember the scene that when I first, and I watched this, of course, when I was way too young. And so kind of like, Louis, how you were mentioning, I'm sorry, Gavin, how you were mentioning earlier of how, you know, you're interested to see where your head was when you watch Crash. Similar for me, and with Crash and Sex, Lies, and Videotape, I was so young. I didn't, you know, understand movies or dissecting films. I was just like, oh, this supposedly has sex, and it has sex in the title. What is, ooh.
That.
Exactly. So it's like, I don't remember what I initially thought about it, but now, you know, watching it as an adult, there is something very sexual about this movie and very erotic in just how these people interact. And the scene where he's watching the tapes, and it's just, I think it's like a very quick scene, but he's naked. And of course you don't even see anything. You just see like just kind of his legs up, and he's kind of blocked very well where there's nothing being shown, but it's so sexy. It's such a gorgeous scene. So it's those types of things. I think that's what I really enjoy about that movie overall.
It's funny, Gavin, aren't you a Soderbergh stan?
Oh yeah. And I really like the movie. I don't mean to take away. I just think, like, the 2023 experience versus the 1989 experience is a very different. So I do kind of agree with him a little bit, but I would wholly recommend seeing the movie. It's funny that you said it's fun and then sort of backtracked. I actually do think it's fun. But it is sort of, you don't realize what the movie is doing to you until, or for me especially, when I was watching it, when Laura San Giacomo like goes and gets her tape done by him, and there's the flashback to what it was like, and when he lays down and she mimics him, but she's on the couch just talking to him. That was so sexy to me.
Yeah.
And nothing is happening. And not like she's literally just talking about, and I was just like, why? Like, it's so well done because it's almost like foreplay.
Right.
Like,
it's the power of consent. It's the power of her feeling safe. She asks him, like, do you want to fuck? And he's like, no.
Yeah.
And so feels safe and and that's what's very sexy is when you could feel like you can let your guard down in front of someone, and that's that connection. So interesting movie for sure. I'd never seen it before.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's, I much like Toya, I had also seen it at a very young, wrong age, but that's how it works. I do want to, just because you'd mentioned it just a little bit before, I do want to mention that the year before was Jack's Back, and I would actually like to talk about Jack's Back because I think Jack's Back is a good bridging point because he's able to play both good Spader and bad Spader in that movie. Jack's Back is a movie about a Jack the Ripper copycat doctor in 1988 is it California or is it San Francisco? I mean, was it San Francisco or LA?
I think
couldn't
it's
tell.
San Fran. I can't
remember.
It's
San Fran as well,
too.
San
Fran.
And while this is happening, there's a young, up and coming, like, good doctor who works at the clinic and wants to help the houseless people. And he's on the news talking. Actually, I was like, this is still correct. Yeah.
Right.
But the way, he does this interview where he's basically like homelessness is not, the problem is not that we need to like hide these people from sight. It's we need to get them in houses. And I was just like, wow, 88. 2023.
We've known the answer to this all along.
Nobody's done anything. And he's this young stalwart doctor who mistakenly stumbles on who he thinks is the killer, gets murdered, and his twin, the bad James Spader, rolls into town because he's now having psychic visions of the death of his brother, wearing a leather jacket. He's gonna hunt down the Jack the Ripper killer. Well, funny enough, he's not actually gonna hunt down the Jack the Ripper killer. He's just interested in the man that killed his brother, which may or may not be the same person.
It's very I Know Who Killed Me, starring Lindsay Lohan.
It is.
Oh my god!
It
It's
really
very.
is. Holy
But in
crap.
this movie, they tell you they're twins. I will say, at first, I was like, "Oh, did he wake up from a dream?" It took me a little bit to realize there is actually two of them.
I did like how they played with that because that's what I thought too. And I was like, whoa, how did he get hotter? Like, what is he doing after this dream? Who? And then it's like, oh, this is his brother?
His bad boy brother.
His bad boy twin.
I also just love the premise of this movie really relies on like, I noticed the trend. They're copying exactly what Jack the Ripper did. Who is referencing?
But also but the reverse of that, I was like, it took 4 of these victims before you realized.
It just feels like the headlines of the newspapers they show us is very like the Jack the Ripper. I was like, someone in the 80s was like, Jack the Ripper's really hot right now. He's really in. Like, what if we brought him back?
It's the 100th year anniversry, right? Is that
right.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like, the century.
Everybody's selling celebrating the Jack's Back centennial. You know how it goes. I do want to move on from there, but I thought that was a thing that we should talk about.
That's a fun watch too. And James Spader, for some reason, his fingernails are consistently dirty in this movie, and it drives me insane.
It's how you know he's bad.
That's how you know he's a bad guy.
boy.
He cannot wash his hands.
Sir, you have witnessed a murder. Wash your hands.
Speaking of bad, I mean, Bad Influence just really, again, the late 80s, early 90s were just so stupid.
I honestly think 1990 is like, for everybody was noticing him for 89's Sex, Lies, and Videotape, and he wins Best Actor at Cannes for that, and I think he's getting these notices, and I think 90 is like what solidifies James Spader, though, because in 90 he stars in both Bad Influence and White Palace, and Bad Influence is like psychosexual thriller. It's like it's basically like bro version of single white female. Like he meets he meets a guy, and that guy's like, you need to be tougher. And by being tougher, I mean fucking up your life and killing people. Robbing stores.
Are you an alpha or not?
That's so interesting too. I would be interested to rewatch that from that perspective, from the alpha beta situation, because that is totally
like,
what it is.
Are you gonna let this person fuck up your life? Or are you gonna take
that's so true.
Relax,
Rob Lowe.
Rob Lowe, calm down. But then also White Palace. White Palace is a movie, funny enough, I watched, and I did not rewatch for this, but I remember actually really liking it. But it's a film I watched for Kathy Bates, who's not in it that much. She played, and
I think her scenes got cut, right? Like later, I think a lot of her scenes got cut.
Oh yeah, she's like, I want to say like 3 scenes, but yeah, she had a much bigger role in the film. She's his boss.
Yes,
is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a film about a like white collar yuppie who meets a volatile. So he's lost his wife at a very young age, and he meets a volatile waitress played by Susan Sarandon, who's working at the White Palace that sells mini hamburgers. And anybody know of any other white palaces?
No.
Kind of rings a bell, maybe.
I just think it's so funny that that's the title they went with. Like, really? Named after...
It's a weird title. Especially, like, going into it, I didn't know what the movie was going to be about, but it really is just, like, story about, like, class and, grief and loss. It's very, like, rom-com-y, but, like, with a heavy heart.
Yeah.
The final scene is maybe too rom-com-y for what this movie did. I don't want to, like, spoil it for anybody, but I was just like, what is this ending?
That's exactly what I was... Especially for, like, this woman who... You know, she's also grieving the loss of her son.
Yeah.
And so they connect over this trauma, but then she's like, you're embarrassed by me. And he's like, no, I'm not. And they have this like culture clash, and she's very like financially insecure. Meanwhile, he's like paying $12.50 for his studio apartment. And that's crazy.
Her sister's played by Miss Peacock.
Yes. Oh my God, I forgot. A lot of these movies, they have like a little like mystical, you know, she's like,
oh yes.
Yeah,
That's
she's a psychic. Yeah. She can like see.
Yeah.
But I do like the sexual chemistry that him and Susan Sarandon have.
Definitely.
And I guess the movie took a lot of knocks when it came out because he was in his 20s and she was in her 40s. But like, I don't know. We don't get that enough.
Yeah, but that's hot. I would say she's hot. She looks great.
She's gorgeous in it. And I think, both of them have such good chemistry. And it's such a beautiful romantic, like I like it as the romantic drama angle. And it definitely has its like funny, like kind of like cute, kitschy parts. But they don't make movies like that anymore. Just about two people who are just trying to come together and trying to develop a relationship. But what do you do when you have these built up walls and built up traumas that you kind of can't break down? And so it's just, about the building of this relationship and kind of how that operates. And it's just, that's not something that we see anymore, and not something that is just as sexually aware of itself as White Palace is.
Yeah. It's funny, the scene that has always stuck with me, speaking of those like built up walls, and it seems so silly, but there's a part where he gifts her like a hand vacuum and she is pissed. And I get it.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want somebody telling you that your stuff is dirty and
that your house is dirty and you need to clean. But it's like, and that what an interesting moment, like a character development and like this relationship development to show just by this one piece of prop. I think that's such a cool way of showing this, like these stemming issues between these two characters. It's a truly underrated movie. I mean, I really, really enjoy that movie a lot. I think it's so beautiful.
You brought me cleaning equipment.
Well, I mean, I didn't bring you Brillo. It's a real thing.
You bring me flowers, you bring me Jell-O, but you don't bring me cleaning equipment.
Nora, you're overreacting.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, you have ring dings under your furniture.
I don't care what's under my furniture. This is where I live. I'll clean up when I want to. You don't like my ring dings, tough shit.
The movie is not black and white. It's everything cuts both ways. They're both grieving. They both have their prejudices. They both are, trying to find their way. And horrible name of a movie, but good movie.
Good movie. let's see. I mean, there's a bunch. There's like a mix of stuff. This is sort of his political era. He's in both True Colors and Bob Roberts. Barely in Bob Roberts. Bob Roberts was like a favor.
Barely.
Yeah,
he's in it for 4 minutes.
It's
4 minutes.
It's funny because that movie was directed by Tim Robbins, and he said when he was trying to get it made, he like contacted every celebrity friend he knows, and everybody came back with "I want to play a newscaster." And I just think it's so funny that James Spader was one of the ones that won out. I was like, I get to play the newscaster. True Colors is an interesting movie. Him and John Cusack. I think it's so funny that it's about two guys who are friends in college, and it's another class struggle movie. James Spader's from upper crust. John Cusack is from the lower class, but also like willing to do whatever he can to get ahead. I think the movie is trying to be like, aren't the politics of the 80s crazy, when really it should be like, isn't John Cusack fucking crazy?
Right.
Like the movie doesn't take enough judgment on him. I was like, no, there's something wrong with him.
Right. That is a psychopath. I like the movie in general. I do not like that they made like the guy who's struggling to break out of his class that he's a bad person.
Yes.
I was like, I don't like that. But I do also, the one thing else about True Colors is I love the way that like white rich people fight. So they like ski fight. Yes. Like, it's like the white rich people are, I don't get it. They're like, let's fuck you, and then go run down a fucking mountain. What? We also get a Mandy Patinkin moment, and he will come back in the next year for the Music of Chance.
I'm glad that you brought up Music of Chance, because I feel like it's a movie most people haven't seen. I loved the Music of Chance. I don't think there's a lot of it's based on an absurdist novel, and I don't think a lot of people would go this far in making an absurdist movie. Do I love everything James Spader is doing in the movie? His accent, it's a little shaky quaky, whatever he's doing.
Sure.
But I love that it's this movie where Mandy Patinkin literally finds James Spader on the side of the road, beaten up and bloody. This man enters his life. He's like, a great poker player. I'm going to win this poker game against these two eccentric rich guys. Beautifully played by Joel Grey, and I can't think of the other actor's name at the moment. And then these rich guys win this poker game and basically enslave him and Mandy Patinkin.
Yeah.
and Mandy Patinkin is like almost a non-character for half of the movie, and then becomes becomes the focal point.
Right. Mandy Patinkin, the hottest person at the time. There's full scenes where he's just walking around in boxer shorts, and I'm like, my brain, I don't.
You're like, should I be looking at this?
I've heard he's not nice, but maybe he doesn't have to be. But Absurdist is a very good. It is an absurd movie, but it's also, bitch. The way this movie got me thinking about life is just fucking. We are enslaved to capitalism. We're enslaved to our debts. Like life, we are slaves to life. Like it's just and the whole idea of like these rich guys who. Are they gay? What the fuck is going on?
Right.
I know. I was very confused about that too. Yeah.
But how could they be gay? Both their wives are dead, Louis.
Right. But like the idea, like I think for a lot of people in poverty or working class, there are no rules. There is no staircase that leads to success. And this movie, literally, these fucking rich fucks just make shit up as they go. They never see them again. You know who you fucking see? Middle management. You see the fucking other white guy who is telling him, well, boss said this. And it's like, this movie had my skin crawling about like capitalism and work. And it's a crazy movie.
It truly is. That's a great point. Because when I first watched it, and I didn't rewatch it for this, but when I first watched it, I hated it. I mean, I kind of hate, just because it's absurdist. It's so outwardly weird, and it does things that I just was not expecting. I was like, what the fuck is this movie? What am I watching? There's elements of it that I really liked, but as a whole I didn't. But now, like, you know, talking about it from that perspective, that is very true. There are all these elements there that I likely just missed the first time. So
and honestly, I think as an initial reaction, hating it is perfectly fine, because like I did spend the first hour, like it's like an hour and a half, and I think I spent the first hour being like, what am I to get out of this?
Right, what's going on?
And then, but I think that's the whole point of, you know, it's almost like great theater, and it doesn't happen enough on film, where it's like, it's like interested in like laying its themes bare and just being like, and now you have to do the work, which like isn't always fun. But I ended up liking this a lot. Yeah, no, I had to think about it for a while too. So I think that's a perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
Look, it's less than 2 months. No big deal. We might even have some fun.
Fun? You call lifting 10,000 stones fun?
Can't kill us. Not 50 days of it.
I'm telling you, it's a mistake to trust these sons of bitches.
Maybe you're right. Maybe you should go now. I'm the one who got us into this mess.
You'd stay here and do it alone?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You're crazy, aren't you?
I would say like after that it's a very short-lived blockbuster era. You get 94, you get Wolf, Stargate, and 93 you get Dream Lover, which I think is a lesser extent, but Dream Lover was his foray into erotic thriller. And yeah.
That was the first movie I watched for this, and I was like,
really?
Huh.
Yeah.
I feel bad because I really like Mad Shinamic, and I was just like, what is going on? A movie where she's a psychopath who has decided to pick out a rich man and lie about her entire life and marry him. And
you forgot one thing.
Yeah,
what is that?
I was like, so her plan is like, I guess some people have a 5-year plan, and she has like really like a 10-year plan. Like,
this movie also just depends on the idea that radical in 93, I would say, that police believe women, that institutions believe women over a successful white man.
Yeah.
She's like, he did hit me, he's insane. And they're like, you're right.
You're right. Like, all right, arrest him, get him out of here. Yeah.
Lock him up.
Toya, actually, funny enough, I saw your co-author Millie DeTurco's her review on Letterboxd, and I 100% agreed with it. It was like, I'm really bored of these erotic thrillers in which a woman drives a man crazy enough that he hits her.
Yeah.
And I was like, yep. Yeah, that's it.
Definitely.
And it pains me because I really liked both of them in this movie, but I hated the movie.
So yeah, so two things about that. I will say one of my other favorite, because I do think Millie it was spot on with it. And one of my other favorite reviews that I saw on Letterboxd, it says this felt like if men's rights activists started their own Lifetime movie network. If that makes sense. 1000% agree.
Yes.
But
oh my God.
On that note, obviously I'm a trash feminist, because I love this movie. It's so wild, but it's like, I love movies about a psychotic person. As terrible as it is, I love an obsession movie, or somebody that just, my job here is to just completely fuck up your life. I have no plan, I have no whatever, but I'm just gonna fuck it up. And two hot people involved in this, they're so hot, and there's a lot of I love just the sex scenes between them and how sensual it is. But and Spader's hair is very weird in this. You can tell this is when he started to get plugs. He started to make a little bit of money, where he's in some plug action going on. But it's the dumbest, weirdest movie, but I just have a ball watching this. It's like a get stoned, eat some popcorn, yell at the TV. It's so much fun for me.
It is certainly an easy watch, I will say.
Very easy. That's a perfect way to say it.
It goes down quite smooth, but
it's just like it was written in reverse. Someone had the idea, well, if you're declared criminally insane, you can kill someone, and then bye. And then they were like, that we'll start from there. We'll start from there.
That's so true. And then they just work their way backwards. Okay, now how do you get to this point? Okay.
It bums me out, and no shade to working on TV, because it's where James Spader is now. But anytime I watched the first couple seasons of Riverdale, and anytime Mad Shinamic showed up, I was like, oh, this is where you are. I wanted someone watching this movie, I was like, she just wasn't given a fair shake. I do think she's very good. And she could have had an entire, but we really did cast aside our erotic thriller actresses. If you,
well, they were all trying, going for the Sharon Stone fight for that was the lane. And it is littered with gorgeous, talented women who were in shitty movies.
At noon, I was out on site. I called back all afternoon.
I had this fantasy of coming to your office and screwing your brains out on top of your desk. I guess the fantasy was misplaced. When you weren't there, I went to my shrinks and then I went to Debbie's. If you don't believe me, call Debbie.
Speaking of Pfeiffer, Wolf, we talked about Wolf in our Pfeiffer episode. I did not rewatch it for this, but I will say, I think he's perfect casting for this as the like young Jack Nicholson. He's not playing young Jack Nicholson, but he is like, as I said in the Pfeiffer episode, it's crazy that this is a werewolf movie literally about like corporate stakes. Like literally it's like James Spader's going to come take your job and also your werewolfness. But he is, and maybe it's the danger factor. Maybe it's he is so hot when he has those contacts in and he's like sniffing Michelle Pfeiffer. And like,
those last 20 minutes make the entire movie worth it for me. It's just,
he does give the same energy of Jack Nicholson of just like alpha man, just like, straight masculine, like can wear the fuck out of a suit.
Right.
But also tear through that suit.
Oh, yeah.
do a little claw action. I like that. Yeah, I like where this is going. And then Stargate. Stargate is a movie that James Spader has talked about several times in interviews, sometimes saying, I didn't want to do it because the script was bad, but then I met Roland Emmerich and I was enchanted by him, and sometimes saying, I didn't want to do it because the script was bad, but I needed the money. I don't think James Spader's ever said a kind word about Stargate.
That's going to be a boot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally get it. Not my type of movie at all, but again, it's the hair, it's the glasses.
Yeah.
It works for him in that movie for sure.
I have a sidebar on that one. It's just that I have not seen Disney's Atlantis: The Lost Empire in a long time, but was his character was the main character designed to just look like James Spader in Stargate?
He does look like him, doesn't he?
I was just like, was he their original choice? And then they were like, let's go with Michael J. Fox. He's less threatening of a voice actor.
Yeah.
And then, Crash is the next movie. It's 96. Yeah. There's like a 2-year gap. I don't know.
He course corrects.
Yeah. And Crash is the David Cronenberg Crash, I should specify. Crash is a movie based on a J.G. Ballard book about people who are stimulated sexually by the idea of crashing cars. And that's, there's no other way to talk about. You could go deeper and be like, it's a postmodern metafiction about how we're replacing sexuality with machines. But it's literally about people who get horny for crashing things. And he's so good. And I do think
too, with the, like, if you want to go, and get master's level type of thing on it, of just all these people, the trauma that they've endured for something, how they are all trying to heal from that by just fucking, then let's watch other people, have trauma, and then, okay, that's hot, now let's fuck. And I just love how sexually fluid this movie is, of just like, anything goes. There's all this, he's a married man in a very kind of open polyamorous relationship, but then him and Elias Cody kind of hook up in the end. Like, he hooks up with everybody in this movie, and just everybody gets off on this weird little like circle that they're all in, that they're just like, all right, car crashes, this works for us, let's do it.
And it's so funny because Cronenberg has said that, for all of the stuff that's in the movie, because the movie's, funny enough, not graphic in the sense that like it's violent. No, it is violent. It's just none of the like. It's not a lot of blood. In all honesty, there's blood, but it's not like a lot of the. And I've seen papers written about how like the scar, like it's more about scars and the things we do to our bodies than it is necessarily about. But he said the thing that people walk out the most of is the sex scene between James Spader and Elias Koteas. And he says I get shit from people that it's too gay, and I get shit from people that it's not gay enough. And to the people who say it's not gay enough, that's the first actual kiss in the movie. He's like, what more do you want? Like the kiss between James Spader and Elias Koteas.
Oh,
He's
interesting. I didn't even realize that. You're right. That is the first like kiss. You're seeing him like, because I was like, no, he's eating out a woman's ass at first. But I'm like, oh, no. But he
right. That's mouth to something else.
Exactly.
Yeah. 100%. Wow. And like, I didn't think about that till I read that too. I was like, it truly is. And the funny thing is like the next kiss in the movie is Rosanna Arquette and Holly Hunter. So like both like actual kisses in the movie are queer. Which is not to say that, like, I don't know. I think autoerotica is, who knows?
Perhaps.
But yeah, it's just a really fascinating movie. It's also like holds its audience at an arm's length, which I think is almost necessary. I think that's like the key to making that movie successful. Even though it is so erotic and is so about bodies and also not bodies, but like kind of creates a distancing. Well, maybe we'll talk about it later.
All right, cool.
But yeah, funny enough, like this is really a career slowdown point after that. I mean, he's working a lot, but like it sort of fits in spurts. I was talking to Louis beforehand. This is sort of the what I call the Tarantino era. You get 96, 97, 2 Days in the Valley, Keys to Tulsa, Driftwood. And I think what I was saying to Louis is like everybody saw the Tarantino bump from Pulp Fiction.
Travolta.
Yeah, Travolta. And like everybody saw that. And so you get a lot of these Tarantino imitators. 2 Days in the Valley, Keys to Tulsa. I didn't rewatch either of these. We've talked about them before, but I remember hating them both and just thinking like not great.
Yeah, I dislike Keys to Tulsa so much. I just think it's
so derivative.
Really bad script. I mean, of course, you know, in terms of hotness with Spader's hotness, Jesus, him in leather pants with the dark hair and the little goatee thing.
Soul patch.
The soul patch. I will watch that movie on mute just to see him in it. He's so fucking sexy in this movie. But 2 Days in the Valley, it has its moments. It's not a great film, but there's what's his name? The main actor who's in it.
Danny Aiello?
Yes, Danny. He's so funny in this to me. He has so many parts that are just really, really good. So I find myself when I first watched this last year, maybe 2 years ago, I rewatched it a couple of times, but I was just rewatching scenes of just rewinding to Spader because him and Charlize Theron are very hot together in that. Oh my God.
And I will say that the thing that makes me laugh, the thing that I remember the most about it is there's that really, and I remember it being very long and maybe it's not, but there's like a brutal fight between Terry Hatcher and Charlize and the neighbor hears it and thinks it's just more rough sex between Charlize Theron and James Spader. And I was like, that's funny.
It is a long scene. Like the director of this movie said, I want these two hot girls fighting. I want them just to extended cut, girl. Like I didn't like either of those movies. I thought wannabe edgy, wannabe, like cool movies. Blah.
You know, people don't realize how important a minute is. So much life revolves around a single minute. You have a minute egg, a minute waltz, a minute rice. People are always demanding you give them a minute. Nobody realizes how valuable it is until they only have one left. Wait. Just stand there a minute. I just want to look at you.
The next bit is like kind of and this is not a course correction, but it is like, I think he's being more picky about what comes along. In 97, you get Critical Care, the Sidney Lumet film. In 98, you get Curtain Call, directed by Peter Yates. In 2000, you get Supernova, famously taken away from its director and given to David Cronenberg's enemy, Francis Ford Coppola. The Nemesis. I say that because the year Crash was at Cannes, the jury was so split that they ended up giving Crash a special prize instead of giving him the main prize. Right. And years later, Cronenberg said he found out that it wasn't the jury was split. It was Francis Ford Coppola was the head of the jury and hated it so much that the jury rebelled. Yeah. And that prize has never been given again. It's reserved. They can give it.
Yeah.
But since Crash won it, has not been given again. And Cronenberg has said that Coppola hated it so much that he refused to give him the award and had somebody else present it to him.
Gag.
Holy shit.
Yeah. The girls are fighting.
The girls are fighting.
I had no idea. Wow.
But I think those three movies, like, is really James Spader trying to, like, be like, okay, if this Tarantino thing isn't working out, like, why don't I be a little more specific? Supernova's trash. I do want to get that out of the way. And Critical Care. I was telling Louis before, I think it's a really great script. I think it's maybe directed wrong. And like,
I agree,
it's this movie about health insurance and doctors. And this James Spader has a patient who's in a vegetative coma, and his two daughters, played by Keira Sedgwick, who I love and can do no wrong, and Margot Martindale, same girl, are fighting over whether he should be turned off life support or not, because if he's turned off by a certain date, Keira Sedgwick gets the money, and if he's turned off by a later date, Margot Martindale gets the money, and James Spader's in the middle of this. The movie looks like a science fiction film for some reason.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
It's costumed like a 1960s sex comedy. These choices are
It's a
nuts.
very weird production where it's like, I like the story. I appreciate what the story is and what it's trying to do, but it just does not work as a actual film. And it's kind of because of that. And I guess because of it's like tonally confusing, I just found myself just kind of like drifting in and out of it. So it's one that I need to rewatch, but I do not want to rewatch anytime soon.
I almost feel like there's no way to watch it without drifting in or out, because then there's also there's this side plot with...
There's the magical realism.
Yeah. There's Jeffrey Wright, who is a liver transplant patient, and his body keeps rejecting transplants, and he just wants to die. And he's being visited by Wallace Shawn as the devil. And also Helen Mirren is she's a nurse, and she's the only person taking care of him. That could be its whole own thing. It's a side bit from the movie. And it's so, I mean, Jeffrey Wright and Helen Mirren are
incredible.
Like so good. But it's impossible to like figure out how that fits in. I mean, the metaphor fits in, but like it just feels like a different movie when you're experiencing it. And then you have all these great scenes of Albert Brooks, who they brought in Stan Winston to basically make him Walter Matthau, and I don't understand why they were like, just hire Walter at that point.
all those scenes are just in service of like, fuck insurance, fuck our healthcare system, fuck doctors. Yeah. We are, and maybe that's why it's so confusing, because like I think that movie is trying to like be timeless. Like, you know, we are in this dystopia of like the fucking beds they lay on are like air
mattresses.
The air mattresses are it's very, very weird. Yeah.
So it kind of takes it out of time, and maybe that's what they were trying to go for, but like it is just a very confusing thing overall. But yeah, I mean, if you want to get mad about healthcare, this is the movie's here for you.
Curtain Call, I just want to bring up because it's so cute.
I've never seen that. Yeah, that's one of the few that I haven't watched yet.
Same.
I found it on a not great copy on YouTube. Somebody had just uploaded the full movie. Maggie Smith, Michael Caine, ghosts. We could have talked about this in our Cinema Hauntings episode. They're like 1920s film star ghosts who died in the 60s, and they haunt James Spader's house. It's so cute. I was like, I want to live with these ghosts.
I mean, if I was to have some ghosts, Michael Caine and Maggie Smith would be good ghosts.
Right?
Absolutely. Supernova, we talked about our Angela Bassett episode, a movie I remember most for digital blackface, which is a film so messed up in its post-production that they added a sex scene between Angela Bassett and James Spader, a low gravity sex scene. That's so not bad. Them.
It's so bad.
It's Robin Tunney and Lou Diamond Phillips and Robin Tunty. Wow.
Hunty.
Tunty. Robin Tunney's skin is digitally altered.
I did not realize that was her.
Well, because it's shot. Okay. Yeah, it's shot so far away that I think they thought they could get away with it, but press was like, nah. It's well. I mean, that's the thing is Lou Diamond Phillips' skin is then lightened to look like James Spader, and it's
holy shit.
I think it's such a testament to how unfocused and kind of bad that movie is, that the chemistry was so right between Angela Bassett and James Spader that they thought that they could put in a sex scene and we would just buy it.
I will say, I remember that I was like, hot.
Exactly. I think that's what frustrates me the most about that movie, because I liked it when I first saw it, only just because it was one of those I watched late at night. I was very fucked up, and it's fun. It is very fun.
Don't think about it.
Yeah, exactly. You cannot think about it. It's not a movie about logic. It's just watch these hot people run around a spaceship and try to get away from the bad guy. And Spader and Angela Bassett's chemistry is so good. It's just like crackling off the screen. Yeah. But I'm like, the whole time I was like, okay, when are they going to make out? When are they going to make out? When are they going to make out? And then they fucking, and it's CGI. It was so bad.
And it's crazy because like they should be the amount when James Spader and Angela Bassett are not on screen, you should be thinking, where are they kissing?
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
How do you think they get that in there?
They put the bottles on the branches so that the buds are inside and the pears grow right in them. Then, when they're ripe, they pick the bottles, pour in the brandy, and voila.
Of course, the real question is how the hell you get it out.
I think the thesis statement we have for Spader, at least, is like, never turns in a bad performance. He, as you said up top, Louis, there is a very singular aspect to his acting style, but I don't think it's ever bad. No. And like when he tries to move out of it, sometimes it can be a little shaky, but like, it's always like committed.
I agree. I think at worst, his later films, we'll get to those of kind of, but at worst, he just sometimes just feels uninspired by the script. It's like, he still commits, he still performs, but it's just like, all right, he just doesn't have anything to do or to bring to this, but he's always very committed. Yeah.
And I'm literally just going to lump the entire next section together from
Please
2000. So 2000, you get Slow Burn, which is as close to a direct-to-video movie I've ever seen. You get Speaking of Sex, which is a funny enough, a movie we have talked about before because it was my 1-star review in our Catherine O'Hara episode. Wow. I hated it so much. And I'm just going to list them, and then I'm going to come back to some. Secretary 2002, Stick Up 2002, Eyewitness 2003, Alien Hunter 2003, Shadow of Fear 2004, Shorts 2009, Lincoln 2012, The Homesman 2014, and Avengers Age of Ultron 2015. I want to come back to 2002. And you missed
The Watcher. The Watcher is the only one, 2000.
I did miss The Watcher. You're right.
The only one.
Yeah. Funny enough, a movie... we talked about it in our Keanu Reeves episode. I don't think I told this anecdote. I feel like maybe I didn't know it at the time. A movie Keanu Reeves only did because his assistant forged his signature on the contract.
What?
Mm-hmm.
What was the assistant said? I need some kickbacks for The Watcher.
And so Keanu Reeves was contractually obligated not to shit talk the movie until a year after it came out. Wow. And he did. After the year after, he was like, that movie's bad.
And that's a professional.
Yeah. The Watcher. Funny. I wish there was more chemistry, but I think it's maybe an artifact of the character Spader is playing in that movie. It's a movie where he's like a traumatized FBI agent because he was hunting down Keanu Reeves, who's a serial killer, and he didn't get there in time. And so he's since moved to Chicago and he's retired, but he still has all these PTSD flashbacks. And Keanu Reeves' menacing serial killer has followed him because they're best friends. My biggest complaint about that movie, because it's fine, whatever, it's throwaway for the most part, is I wish him and Marissa Tomei had more chemistry because I like both of them.
Yeah.
But I also think like it's that time period where everybody was like, every main character has a psychiatrist and they always fall in love with the psychiatrist. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
Like,
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. The romantic angle is definitely forced. And I think the thing that and it just sucks because it's like, I would love to see Keanu be successful at being, this weird, crazy serial killer, but just nothing about the movie works. It just, it felt, I don't know. It has so many, like aesthetically, so many things that I highly dislike that it's doing, like these weird slow motion edits, and like it's an ugly movie too. I just didn't really enjoy it.
Yeah, for some reason people really loved that like slow frame thing from the 2000s, the like, and it's like no one needs this shutter effect. I don't know what you think you're doing.
This era, though, was when he starts his dalliance with TV, because he starts in The Practice in 2003.
Right.
And then in 2004, Boston Legal pops off. And so, like, you know, all these movies, like, you know, I watched Eyewitness, It's Whatever.
Yeah.
But a reteaming of him and Rowdy, the guy that directed Jack's Back, who he also did The Stick Up with. And I feel like he's a really loyal friend based on those two movies. Where I'm like,
yeah, it just feels like, you know, it's a slowdown. You know, he does Shadow of Fear, which was my direct-to-video version, because that movie, I was like, that is a fake movie.
It's a fake movie. It feels like a front, like somebody from the mob fronted this just so they could get, I don't know what they got from it, but good God.
But that was in 2004, and then he's in Shorts in 2009, and that's because he's in Boston Legal shooting 1 billion fucking episodes. Like there's over 100 episodes of Boston Legal alone. And so I think like it feels like his interest is just not in movies anymore, or he's so inspired by, you know, I mean, that show ran forever for a reason.
I have found that television is able to finance many other things. For instance, I would not have been able to do Lincoln, which I loved doing. I would not have been able to do that if I wasn't working for a year as a guest on The Office, a television show. Yeah. Even The Avengers was a film that I had great fun doing and got paid all right, but unless that becomes a franchise for one, where you're doing one after another of those Marvel movies, it's not a career.
I found many a refreshing interview with him where he's like, the best way to put it is he needs the money. And he's like, in order for me to be, and like, listen, I kind of love that he's honest about it. He's like, in order for me to live the life that I'm accustomed to, television is the consistency and the money that I need to maintain that life. It's fun to hear him say that. I will say there was a major recession in 2008. He could have pared down his life a little bit, like, but
he was like, no, I'm a famous Hollywood star.
Yeah, and but I mean, that's the other thing is he is. So like, it feels, and like I'm not the one giving him financial advice, but it is nice to hear a celebrity talk about that.
I work as hard as I do because to pay for my life, and the economics of being an actor has changed dramatically in the last 20 years.
Sometimes dictated by I'm out of money. And so I might be looking for a film at a certain time of year, and I'm looking for the best thing I can find at that time. And sometimes it's something that I like this, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's something that I'm doing just because I need to earn the money. Now, I'm going to look for the best thing I can find at that time, and whatever I find, I'm going to try and do. I'm going to try and make it into the best I can.
It's interesting that his last time on the big screen was this motion capture voice for a Marvel film that, I mean, no one liked Age of Ultron, whatever. I'm not here to like shut on Age of Ultron. Like we get it. It is what it is. But like, one, he does have a great voice. Like he could voice act till the end of days. And like, it's just so commanding and so singular. But it's telling, you know, like he did this Marvel movie and then went back to TV. And The Blacklist has been on TV for, you know, a long time now, considering the lifespan of shows.
10 years. 10 years. Lord. It had a spin-off.
Like, it's such a, and I've never watched it. It's on my list. It's one of the things that once I check off all of these movies, I'll probably check out a season or two. I definitely want to do Boston Legal though. I watched it when it was on, but I was too young to even like know what was actually going on with it. But yeah, I do respect him as an actor that he does admit that he is just kind of like, yeah, this is a paycheck for me. Like, yes, I love to act. I enjoy acting, but the easiest way for me to get this paycheck to to go to expensive dinners. And, you know, he's apparently an audiophile. So he has this like crazy sound system in his house and all. So it's just, you know, to enjoy your life of leisure. Yeah, do television. Not have to worry about picking these roles because, you know, especially considering how many just shit roles that he did pick in the 2000s just to kind of keep the paychecks coming, like just to commit to TV and like have that be your gig. Yeah, not bad. Could be worse.
I also wanted to mention he is famously, and I think probably a lot of like younger listeners know him from his time on The Office.
Yes. That was the Lincoln example. Is he said he did that entire season of The Office so he could do Lincoln.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, interesting. That makes sense.
Yeah. And so like I was like, oh wow, yeah. It's two things before we move out of this real quick. Or touch on his personal life, which we really haven't done too much of that. But I mentioned up top, I love Boston Legal. Somebody asked him, they're like, you have such good chemistry with William Shatner. You guys must be really good friends. He's like, no. He's like, we've seen each other maybe twice since that show ended. He's like, but that's the key to David E. Kelley's writing and our screen. He's like, but we're very different people. And I was like, wow, I would not have guessed that. Yeah.
He's like, I'm a professional. I don't have friends. Okay.
The other thing I just wanted to bring up real quick too, like, Secretary. And I think Secretary is maybe what kind of cements him with that odd reputation. Between that and Crash, for being Secretary is a romantic comedy about BDSM. Because it's him and Maggie Gyllenhaal. I really love his performance in that movie. It's so singular and so specific. And I think he dug really deep. There's a line reading towards the end of the movie where he's like, we couldn't do this 24/7, 7 days a week. And Maggie Gyllenhaal's like, why can't we? And I just, his reaction to that, and that movie's good.
I like that movie. I definitely enjoy that movie.
In terms of his personal life, I mean, he did win an Emmy for The Practice, and he won it again in 2007 for Boston Legal. You know, he is getting rewarded for these TV jobs. And then also he met his first wife, who was a decorator, Victoria Keel, while working in a yoga studio after he moved to New York City in the 80s. I mentioned he was a yoga instructor. They married in 87 and they had 2 sons, and then they split in 2004. When he began dating his Alien Hunter co-star Leslie Stephenson in 2003, in 2002, they had 1 son together. And I mentioned that he maybe has OCD. It sounds like he's self-diagnosed. I don't know his personal psychiatric life.
He's keeping it guarded, close to the chest.
Yes. He is. And I think that's the other thing, as I mentioned before, I think that's the other thing that's important about him is he's very like, you know what? There's a life for the press and there's a life for me. And I think there's a good separation there.
I refuse to let my home life and my life with my friends and my family be compromised by what it is I do for a living. I refuse to let that happen. As passionate as I feel about it, it's not worth sacrificing anything in my home life.
It's him and Beyonce.
Truly that. I think that is a good place to stop down on Spader. So why don't we go to our picks, and why don't we start with our 1-star reviews to talk about the films of his that we maybe didn't really like.
Quatoyiah, as our guest, girly, you get to go first. What is your 1-star review?
We are cruel.
I know, but you know, he makes it easy. Spader has a lot of stinkers. He has a lot of very, very bad movies. But I think for me, the one that I just absolutely hated watching was Alien Hunter. It's so physically ugly. The colors are gross. Everybody looks sick and pale. And I love shitty alien movies, and it just somehow failed to even be fun. It's very, I just thought it was dry. I thought it was very boring. And Spader is just, he's not really hot in it. He doesn't do anything. He's just there. It felt like a paycheck movie for everybody. It just felt like no one had chemistry. No one was excited to be there. It just, all right, let's shoot. Okay, cut. All right, cool. Bye. That's just kind of what it felt like. So for me, I do not want to have to watch that movie over again. I would happily go through all of his trash movies again, but that one, like, get that out of my face.
Wow.
So I'm going to take the opportunity to go second because we purposely don't tell each other our picks to keep it fresh, to keep it lively. I 100% co-sign that. Alien Hunter is my 1-star review. Wow. I watched Alien Hunter instead of watching the Oscars. It is. Gavin. It's so bad. It's so low budget. And like, listen, I don't want to shit on any low budget filmmakers. We've talked about on this show before. It's really hard to make a movie. Nobody sets out to make a bad movie. Definitely. But this really, like, literally, just to give you a clue, the alien in the movie, when they finally reveal the alien, it is the same puppet from Independence Day.
They found her on eBay?
Yeah, they couldn't even come up with an original alien.
Yeah.
It is a hideously ugly movie, and it made me so sad to find out that the final 10 minutes of the movie, which takes place in this very like green screen CG globulous thing, took them 6 months to make.
No.
I was like, yeah.
Ew.
Mama.
I was like, no, like people spent time on this.
So many people wasted their lives. Oh
yes,
my God.
And it's so bad. And like, congrats to him for meeting his second wife there.
Exactly. It's the only silver lining is he met his now wife. But dear God.
It's so bad and so boring, and like filled with, when it's not filled with bad CG shots, it's filled with obvious stock shots. My favorite is he works for SETI, but he's also a college professor. And when it shows like the generic shot of the college he works at as an exterior, I was just like, couldn't even afford that Getty money. What is this, like iStock.com? Like, yeah.
Wow.
You really think it's ETI in origin, don't you?
Everything certainly points to it.
I hope you're wrong, Jules.
Boy, nobody's called me that for a long time. Why do you hope I'm wrong?
Because if you're right, we could be Neanderthals in comparison.
Well, that may not be so bad. Just think we might learn from them.
So Alien Hunter, definitely a 1-star review. Louis,
you guys are making me dive here. So I was telling Gavin before this, like, I didn't get to Alien Hunter, and I wanted to.
Lucky you.
But in the similar vein, my 1-star review is Stargate, where he also plays a scientist who like has all the answers. I love movies that are like, NASA has all these really smart people, but they're so stupid. They're so dumb. And it takes this fucking community college professor to come in and be like, actually, you mistranslated all these things. And why don't I just go boop, 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 boom, Stargate.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I had not seen Stargate since I was maybe even a preteen. And when I was that age, if something bored me, it was done. And I found Stargate so boring
boring.
I never got into the like TV show or anything because I was just in my mind. I was like, it's so boring. I watched it literally I saved it for last because I was like, it's going to be a slog. And I watched it last night and I was like, you know what? This movie's really boring.
It's boring. It's wild that like there's inherently problematic that they're like, okay, what about if Egypt was aliens? Like,
I mean, the ancient alien stuff always gives me pause because invariably it always goes back to brown people couldn't have done this.
There's no way they could have done this. So obviously, exactly.
Yeah, and
slavery, no.
And so like this, and so like I thought. I was like, maybe it's not really like that. And I once again watching it last night, and when they first meet the slaves, all the people that they first meet, I was like, they're literally all people of color.
Yeah.
And like James Spader's love interest is literally a woman that was given to him.
Yep. In servitude, and like, and they can't talk.
Exactly.
And it's just, again, like the costume, like they're in Egypt royal regalia, but they're aliens. Techno Egypt. It wants to be Star Wars so bad. It wants to be, like this big giant space opera so bad.
The guy that played Ra hated those costumes so much he retired from acting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like just looking at like the Wikipedia, and there's like all these crazy things. How like they put like sticks in cloth in the background to make it look like there were people in the desert. They like the original starship was black, but they thought it looked like a tire, so they painted it silver at the last minute. Like,
oh my god!
I will say the one like the nice thing James Spader has said, and I think it's like a backhanded like slap to Ultron, as I watched an interview with him after he'd already done that, and he was like, the nice thing about doing Stargate was at least the sets were physical, and I wasn't having to act against like a green screen or a broom with the thing on it.
Yeah,
it's such a bad movie. I did not enjoy that one at all, and it's 2 hours, but for something to be that boring, it feels like it's at least 4 hours. It drags.
Yes. It drags. It's got the like it wants to do this like massive world building, but it's just like so misguided.
Yeah,
he is doing his Indiana Jones best, I guess, and in the end, it's just kind of like a nothing burger. Who's the Kurt Russell? Kurt Russell's the guy with the gun.
Kurt Russell is a guy that they like select to lead their team, and you know that he's a man on edge because they like burst into his room and avert him from committing suicide. Right. Like he like is sitting in a room alone with a loaded gun, and he like slides it underneath a pillow, but that pillow has hieroglyphics on it. So you know he's the right man.
So think about that.
I'm gonna need more time. I mean, there's bound to be more structures here, or some other traces of civilization.
Not this trip. Just get back in there and reestablish contact.
Well, it's not that easy. This is a replica of the Great Pyramid of Giza. We're not going to find any hieroglyphic inscriptions or carved relief. I mean, we really need to look around more.
Your job here is to realign the Stargate. Can you do that or not?
I can't.
All right. I mean, it seems like we don't like James when he's going to space. Is there anything else we want to mention really quickly? That where's the bottom of the barrel type stuff?
I definitely gotta throw out Shadow of Fear. That's just a god awful. Like it just felt like one of those movies that just maybe it was somebody's just trial of making a movie. And again, not to crap on anybody's art. Like I respect anybody trying to make a movie, but that movie particularly is just, it's so bad. I'm like, who is this for? One, who was this made for? Why was this made? And what was the plan for who? I don't get it. I don't understand why that movie was made. And then James is really bad in it. He just kind of, he's whispering the whole time. And then he's just not really doing too much. It's just, I don't understand that movie at all.
Very, very astute observation. Okay, Gavin, let's get out of here. Let's get into our 5-star reviews.
Okay, so my controversial opinion was going to be that it's Dream Lover, but I don't want to get canceled. So...
I'm so sorry, Toya. It's been so nice. No.
The reviews are mixed.
Do not cancel me. No, I really do enjoy that movie, though. Like I said, it's just right down my alley in terms of psychotic craziness.
As much as I was kind of shitting on it, I do think it is fun. It does get to that point where when he does hit her that I was like, oh, this is what we're building to. Like, it almost feels like her plan is too clever for that. Like, but it's also the 80s and they won't let her have that.
Yeah,
or the
exactly.
90s, I guess.
The 90s,
yeah.
But that's not my actual pick. That's like my Dream Lover. But my actual pick is I love White Palace. I think White Palace is so precious. It's so special. It made me cry multiple times. Again, I just really enjoy adult dramas about real people trying to navigate love and like figuring out relationships with each other and what happens when you're closed off, you have your own traumas, and you're trying to kind of communicate that with another person. So I think that's a really, really special movie. I wish more people would watch it. I wish more movies were made like that. I think now television is kind of the place to find those types of stories. But I think it's cool that, it's just a reminder that like, oh yeah, once upon a time, we were giving a sizable budget to telling these types of stories. So I just miss having adult stories like that.
I love that movie because they are given the space to be very generous and kind to each other, even through their fuck ups. The way, he gives her that vacuum cleaner and she, goes off the handle like she should. The movie does not make him too proud or mad. To like the next day he comes back with a bunch of fucking flowers, you know, like, and it gives everyone a lot of grace to be like, yeah, like I this is difficult for me, it's difficult for you, like, but we're learning together, we're figuring out together. And so I think like a more dramatic fucking movie would make it into like a bigger deal.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think that's what makes it so special are these small moments that feel very realistic. Cause I mean, there's that part where he comes over to her house and she's on the porch because her lights have been off and like, she's just like chain smoking and she's pissed at him because she needed him to be there, but he couldn't because he was doing his own thing. And they just kind of have this real conversation just about, you know, I love that. I think that that's such a great way of showing how nuanced relationships are with each other.
There's no other woman.
Bullshit.
I wish there was, but there isn't. I can't even look at another woman without wanting you.
Fred, you're gonna have to do better than that.
Nora, I don't know what's happening.
Why did you lie to me?
I don't know what's happening to me. I have never wanted a woman as much as I wanted you. Never, not even my wife.
You better be careful with words like that. Words like that could kill a person if you don't mean it.
Well, I mean it.
That you love me more than you do your wife?
I didn't say that. I said I wanted you more than my wife.
That's a really good pick. I also love the movie.
A fantastic pick. I do really love that movie. And also their chemistry is off the... Once again, James Spader's kind of a chemistry machine, but like
He really is,
him and Sarandon are...
Yeah.
Woo!
Gavin, what about you?
I'm also going to go with sexy sexual Spader, and I'm going to go with 1996's Crash. Now, I know that might be kind of a controversial pick because it is sort of a distanced performance. Like, it's not a showy performance. No one is showy in that movie. I mean, maybe Holly Hunter at the most in terms of like, but that's just
because she's Holly Hunter.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
But, you know, as we mentioned, autoerotic, like he's this man who's kind of drawn into this illicit world of sex and cars, and it like you said, Toya, it's very fluid. Everybody like it's not really about being gay or straight or bi. It's just everybody's just turned on. The scene that like really sells it to me the most is there's that moment towards the end of the film where they're all watching like crash test footage and they pause it for a moment, and Holly Hunter's like needs to unpause it, like she's so fucking turned on by the but James Spader I think is both good at he's a participant in this world, and he's also this kind of observer. A large portion of this movie is him literally driving Elias Koteas around as he fucks people in the back seat. And I think you have to be so engaged with what's going on in Spader's head, and what, like, he knows this is a crazy situation, but he knows him and all of these people have become such slaves to these impulses that they have. And I think it's fascinating. I mean, there are papers that are written about it, but I think there's papers that could be written about it. It's such a unique, it's a very, it's a postmodern film without being showy about its postmodernness. And but I don't know. There's something about him being so closed off and so open, and like, I don't want to spoil anything, but it's a movie about car crashes. There's a moment at the end of the movie where there's a car crash and he's with his wife, and he says maybe the most gross thing in the movie, which is he asks her if she's hurt, and she's like, I don't think I am. And he says, maybe next time. And it's so gross and so weird and erotic. And so like, it's almost like the natural conclusion to these people's sexual desire is death.
Yeah.
Like, they are gonna die doing this.
Who is that, the announcer? Do I
Right
know
behind
him?
here, behind the seats, was a very sophisticated, air-cooled, flat, four-cylinder race.
That's Vaughn.
With a capacity of
He spoke to you at the hospital.
14.98 cubic centimeters. It featured 4...
I thought he was a medical photographer.
Driven by a complex set of beveled gears.
Doing some sort of accident research. He wanted every conceivable detail about our crash.
Bodied and light. No more than 1,350 pounds. It was nimble. It was responsive.
When I first met Vaughn, he was a specialist in international computerized traffic systems.
Racers of the day said that it was not an easy car to drive fast.
I don't know what he is now.
Well, it's like the danger of desire. Because because the entire movie, they're not coming. Like him and his wife cannot have orgasms. They're fucking everybody. You know, they have these really rich sex lives. in the hopes to finally orgasm. And then all of a sudden, after this crash, they're kind of entangled in this like weird psychosexual, autosexual world. And even at the end, after this other crash, it's like, maybe next time, there's still the desire or the danger of desire just is never ending until perhaps, like you said, Gavin, death. Like, is death the final orgasm?
The ultimate release, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just reading about Cronenberg in this movie, it's like very like, oh my God, like this is great.
He was told several times not to make this movie, that it would ruin his career, and I'm so happy it didn't, obviously. But yeah,
it's dangerous.
It's so funny that Scorsese put it on his top. It was number 8 on his top 10 films in the 90s. Bertolucci told him that it wasn't a movie; it was a religious experience. It's all these like I think it says a lot about the audience, but also I just picked it as my 5-star review, so whatever. What does it say about me?
It's a great pick. I mean, it's a great pick too, and especially in terms of Spader's performance. I think you make a great point of how kind of closed off he is, and I think that's what I like about him as an actor, is that like I don't consider him a very outwardly showy actor.
Yeah.
I think he lets things simmer. He's a very internal actor. So he's one of whatever character he's playing, you kind of see the wheels turning. You don't really know what he's thinking or what he's planning to do until the actions show you. But he puts all of his process, like it's a very internal process that he kind of just emotes on screen. And I think it's a really interesting, fascinating kind of way of performing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's funny that you say that, because I think when he does get external, you get a performance like the New Kids where he's bleach blonde and like doing a bad Southern accent and like being just the most like Spader could be.
Yeah.
So you're right. Yeah, it's that distance. Louis, what is your 5-star review?
My 5-star review is 2002's Secretary.
We all
again,
like the sexy Spader.
We like a sexy Spader.
That's the only way to enjoy him. That's the way you get in, and then everything else is secondary.
I think Maggie is very good in this. Maggie Gyllenhaal. I think again this movie is a lot about so the main character is Maggie Gyllenhaal. She is this woman who self-harms. She is trying to find her way after being released from a hospital. And James Spader hires her to be a secretary. He's a little bit of weirdo, and he kind of like sees the signs that she is into self-harm. And she is kind of like relapsing a little bit. She's kind of like, on a downward slide, and he sees her and he just starts telling her to be his like BDSM girly, and she is like, oh fuck, I need this in my life. And they have this really wonderful relationship where they just are each other's releases from like the horrors of everyday life. And but he is disgusted with himself. He does not like this about himself. He thinks he is unwell, and so he pushes her away. And they kind of have this, like you said it earlier, like they have this like rom-com-y love story thing, and she is unwilling to give it up. She's like, she needs this to survive. Whereas he is just really pushing that away. And what I love is like, because a lot of it is internal, but then like you get the like, he has like the release valve to be able to be like, bend over the fucking table, like, and just like, let's fucking go. And it's like, it is so hot, but it is not. It's kind of the same thing as like sex videotape.
Sex lies and videotape.
Yeah.
It's the restraint, like both literally and metaphorically here. But like and it also, I would say in Crash, like they're literally have these machines on their bodies, or like and so it's I think it's just like a very like tea kettle performance, and in the end they figure it out. But it's like I thought a lot about like man, when you just like, even though this movie is about BDSM, it's about accepting every part of yourself and giving up that shame. We have so much shame around sex as a culture, as a people, and I think all three of these movies do a really good job of like exploring like how fulfilling your life would be if you just like give up that shame.
Why do you cut yourself, Lee?
I don't know.
Is it that sometimes the pain inside has to come to the surface, and when you see evidence of the pain inside, you finally know you are really here? Then, when you watch the wound heal, it's comforting, isn't it?
That's a way to put it.
I'm going to tell you something, Lee. Are you ready to listen?
Yes.
Are you listening? You will never, ever cut yourself again. Do you understand? Have I made that perfectly clear? You're over that now. It's in the past.
I think part of the brilliance of the construction of the movie is that it does present itself with some very romantic comedy tropes in order for, because I think BDSM is kind of hard for an audience to get behind because of that shame, because of that, the things that we tell ourselves that we're not allowed to do and we can't do. Is this a healthy boss worker relationship? No, but
Not
that's
at
why
all.
he fires her.
Exactly.
But I think if it's not presented that way, that it's so delicate. This time watching it, because I hadn't seen it in years. This time, and not to make this another Clue episode, but watching Leslie Ann Warren, who plays her mom, I think she's such a deep character because you kind of understand where Maggie Gyllenhaal is. She's such a protector. She's the type of woman who will literally drive to her daughter's workplace because she's so scared about her daughter's fragility that she's like, I'm going to wait here for 5 hours for you to finish work.
Right. Right. And it's there's something very powerful. She literally is throwing away the tools that she needs, that she feels she needs to keep herself sane. And those tools are all her knives and all those cutting instruments. It is more powerful than sex. And there's a really horrible scene where he, masturbates on her and she's so disappointed because this is not about sex. This is about being unguarded. This is about being free. This is about trusting someone. But because of his shame, and he is so repulsed by the idea that he's getting love and pleasure over their sub and dom relationship. He kind of ruins it a little bit. But she's unwilling to give it up.
But I think that's when her character realizes that in a sub and dom relationship, there is aspects of both. Because like I mentioned before, that scene earlier when he's like, we can't do this 24/7. And she's like, why can't we? It's in that moment, she's the dom. She's like, no, we're going to.
He needs to realize that he needs it as much as she does.
Right.
And that's where the catharsis, that's where the ending of it all coming together. It's a great movie. I had never seen it before. And I immediately started texting friends. I was like, have you seen this movie? It's amazing.
And it's so interesting too of this kind of this came out when it did, before it was cool to be into BDSM and when kink was still this kind of shameful thing. Anybody who even remotely was like, oh, I'm kind of interested in it, everybody, oh really?
It was still very taboo.
Exactly. And it's I really appreciate kind of how that movie shifted the conversation. And I mean, I think, now that's why we can have such, watered down stuff like 50 Shades of Grey and all of that.
Exactly.
Where it starts with this. Yeah.
I had completely forgotten that his character name is Gray in the movie, and I was just like, someone fucking stole something.
Exactly.
But those are all really good picks. Was there anything else that either of you saw? I mean, there's the bunch of things, and for, I don't want to go on for too long of time, but there was a bunch of other things that I saw that I really liked. And once again, I will say, it's not a perfect movie, but Curtain Call's so cute.
I would say the music of Chance, if you want to mind fuck, go watch that, go down the rabbit hole.
Tough Turf, very 80s, very
80s.
Fun nonsense.
I really like Star-Crossed. I don't know if y'all watch Star-Crossed,
Oh, yes!
but it's so 80s, so much neon pink. It's so weird, but
so
just,
much red leather.
Yes,
Ooh.
yes. Just it's such a perfect time capsule of that time, but just like another alien movie. I think it's his best alien movie.
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Best alien movie.
All good picks, but I think we should move into our mixed reviews review.
My 1-star review is Alien Hunter from 2003.
My 1-star review was also Alien Hunter from 2003.
And my 1-star review was Stargate from 1994.
My 5-star review is White Palace from 1990.
My 5-star review was Crash from 1996.
And my 5-star review is 2002's Secretary. Oh, the sexy trifecta right there, baby.
Truly.
Truly is. Sexiest films of all time right there.
All right, let's get into our fast forward.
In terms of what's coming up, Blacklist is ending. So James Spader's going to be a free man. Yeah. So
Wow.
unless he lands, I've heard some crazy theories about Blacklist, a show I don't even watch, but in researching this, like some people believe that he's like secretly there was a main character. She was killed off a couple seasons ago, even though the whole crux was like, how is he related to her? Some people believe he's truly her mother with plastic surgery.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. Crazy.
Okay,
Anyway,
Blacklist is crazy.
I once again, I don't watch that show, so I don't know. I have no skin in the game. But yeah, when that show ends, he's going to be a free agent. I wonder if he'll continue on the TV path. I truly don't know. I prefer he stay out of Marvel movies, but maybe they'll bring Ultron back. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think his voice is... If they want to bring Ultron back, like, let's just do a little voice moment, baby. Like, get that check, whatever. I think, like, where I see him, honestly, is just, like, FX... An FX show of some sort. Like, I do love that he is in his alpha old man domineering bag right now. Like, he has always had that presence. Just us talking about him and Angela Bassett earlier made me think, like, I would really just fuck with some, later in life sexual attention. I would really like to bring that back. I don't know if he's being able to be sexy on Blacklist. It doesn't sound like it.
I don't think so.
Like it,
yeah.
But yeah, I think like I was thinking about like he obviously has changed a lot. He was a strapping young lad. He is now an older gentleman. But like the vibe just never fucking stops. He like always has it oozing out of him. And yeah, I kind of think like he's so good at that singular thing that I think I want him to keep doing it. Like sometimes it's like, oh, we want to see them like on Broadway or a comedy. I'm like, no. Whatever James Spader does, I just want him to be sexual tension.
Yes.
And be like the guy.
And I would love that because, as you said, he is aging. He's not super thin anymore. I feel like I can say that as a heavier set person. And he's balding, and he's like constantly wearing fedoras. He said like his two vices in life are records and hats. So like, but he's. I would love if he got to continue to be that sex symbol, even though he doesn't look like what we consider a sex symbol. Like we need that. I think.
I agree. Cause I mean, to be honest, like, I mean, I'd still fuck if I ever met him and we're down, like, of course, like I'm still going in if that's the case. So like,
if he did it to me too. Yeah. I'd be
right?
like, oh.
So I would, I mean, to your point, like I would love for him to continue down that kind of trajectory in the next phase of his career, because it will be fascinating to see where he goes. And I think that, okay, now with television being so amorphous and, so grand as it is now, the right platform needs to kind of snap him up and do a cool project with him. So I'd love to see, whether it be FX or HBO or something like that, but I definitely think he needs to go the mature route and like continue down that road.
Yeah, something that can keep him in wine and boats.
Exactly.
Listen, we want our Spader sexy, and we want it now. Okay,
Exactly.
just keep him out of space. That's all I have to
Keep
say.
him out of space, and we're fine. Yeah.
It's okay if an alien comes here, but he can't go there.
He can't go there. And I think he's had enough of being a cop, detective, whatever.
Yes.
Like let's move on from that. It's been a long time, so let's move on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No narc Spader either. Yeah. Absolutely. Toya, you have been, oh my God, this is a true treat. You are amazing.
Guys, thank you so much. Thank you.
I do want to give you a moment to plug whatever you want to plug. Obviously, plug the book. Tell people where they can find you online. And I would, if I could, like, keep you just a little bit longer. I know Louis has to run shortly after this, but if I could talk to you about the book for a little bit, I would also love to do that.
I would love to. Sure.
Awesome. But it's all yours. The stage is yours.
Now? Okay, I'll plug now. So right now, like, you can find me online. I'm on it's Quatoyiah _Murry on Instagram. I have platforms everywhere. Find me on Letterboxd. It's Toya M on Letterboxd. Follow me there. It's one of my favorite places online. So I'm always updating. And then, yes, please read my book, buy my book. You can find it at Amazon or wherever books are sold. It's TCM Underground, 50 must-see classics. It's a very long title. 50 must-see films from the world of classic, cult, and late-night cinema. I co-wrote it with Millie DeCherico, who's the former programmer for TCM Underground. It's a phenomenal experience. We're very proud of the book. And yeah, any support helps. So thank you guys so much for having me. Like, this has absolutely been wonderful. Like, this has been so much fun.
The vibe of like late night underground movies, like that is just I love people who aren't too precious about movies. You said, put that shitty movie on. I want to see it. Like,
exactly.
Well, that's one of the reasons why, like, I especially finding out, asking you to be on the show, finding out that you were even interested. That's one of the things I love, because one of the reasons we do this show, one of the reasons that attracted me to this show 5 years ago, was we get to talk about movies that people don't necessarily seek out or see. And there's so many movies in this book that we have talked about. I mean, Polyester, Blackula, I'm like losing them all now, but they've all been things that we've touched on. House, aka Hausu, like these are all Let's Scare Jessica to Death, we talked about in our vampire episode. Like, these are movies I genuinely love, and so I'm glad to like have a book that's celebrating them and hopefully telling other people, like, we can scream it from the rooftops, but it's just Louis and I, like, so it's nice to have somebody who's like an actual academic be like, no, there's stuff here.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, and that's my thing. I'm like, hey, trust me, I got my master's, I know what I'm talking about. And Patton Oswalt wrote the foreword, so no, to that
It's
point,
a great
like,
foreword.
we do love that it is something that a lot of just cult movie fans can kind of appreciate. We're not talking about these movies from more of sometimes there's a little bit of the high art talk, but it's not a academic boring. It's just like, no, these are fun movies that we enjoy. Here's the context behind it. Here's why you need to watch it. So, and just, pleasure of talking to fellow people like you guys who are doing the work and also celebrating and championing these movies, and a lot of these actors who people just kind of overlook because they're not the A-list cool guys. So we need more moviegoers like us in the world.
I love it. You have been incredible. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It's like I said at the beginning, I mean, like, when the film girlies get together, it's just so much fun.
So much fun.
So
yes, thank you so much, Toya. But remember, if you want to contact us on Twitter, you can always find us at The Mixed Reviews.
We're on Facebook at The Mixed Reviews.
You can always email us at reviewsmixed@gmail.com.
We're on the Insta at _mixed_reviews.
And if you want to listen to our back catalog of episodes like you just listened to this one, you can find us on any major podcast app. We're on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Audible, pretty much anywhere that you find podcasts. And if you do listen to us on any of those, stop by, leave us a 5-star rating, write us a little review, and we'll read it on the show.
Yeah, we love notes.
We do. Absolutely. We love notes like James Spader loves sex.
Okay. But like also a little bit weird. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you again in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
We walk the night. We walk the night. Fighting the darkness that breaks our hearts. We hold each other tight.